What's up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. This is super exciting to say welcome back because this is my second video. So clearly I'm a very experienced YouTuber. So today what we're going to be talking about is how to give your boss feedback. Very excited about this just because I know that it's an extremely uncomfortable conversation anytime you're giving your boss feedback about something that you don't necessarily agree with. And I've been in that situation many times myself, and I've also been the one receiving feedback. So I think that there's a lot of different things that I can share that will help you. So if that's something you're interested in, or you think this is something you may have to do in the future, then please keep watching. And if you like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. So first and foremost, something I would say is just overall what you should do is evaluate. So how receptive will your boss be to the feedback that you're giving him or her? Not every single leader or boss, manager, whatever you want to call it, is going to be receptive towards your feedback. So I guess it depends on what type of personality they have. If there's someone that's open to feedback, and if you think that this is someone that will find benefit in the feedback that you're going to give, or if you feel like there's no other option other than to give this feedback, I always say do it. Give the feedback regardless of who they are or how they're going to respond to that feedback. I know myself as a new leader, I wasn't necessarily the most open to it, to be honest with you. I didn't show a lot of empathy, number one. Number two, I didn't have a lot of confidence in my position. I was a young manager whenever I got promoted. I think I was 19 whenever I became a supervisor, 20, not even 21 whenever I became a manager for my company. And there was a lot of people that reported directly to me that were older than me that also thought that they could do my job better than me. And I wasn't the most open to that feedback. But on the flip side, there was a lot of people that weren't honest with me about however they were feeling. And if they were honest, they weren't the most respectful whenever they gave me that feedback. So for me, I think it's always important to give that feedback regardless. But again, I'm very open to anything. Number two, what I'll say is do it privately, one-on-one. Never, ever give a coworker feedback in front of an entire group. Never give manager feedback in front of an entire group. And on the other side, like, a manager should never be giving a line level, associate, part-time, full-time, anyone that reports to them directly should never give that feedback in front of a group of people. I know myself that sometimes I do it now, and it isn't anything serious in my eyes. Whenever I'm giving someone feedback, I could be saying something over the walkie or in front of a group, and to me, I don't think it's feedback, but I've had tell me that that is something that they rather have one-on-one, and I'm completely open to it, and I understand where they're coming from, because something that they think is important isn't necessarily something that I would view as being important, or I would view as being criticism, I guess you could say. So always do it one-on-one, because in the situation where you're giving a leader feedback in front of other people, that leader is immediately, or manager, is immediately going to become defensive in that situation. For me, if you're giving me any type of feedback in front of a group of people, just keep in mind all of these people report directly to me in some way, shape, or form. So I'm immediately going to go on the defense about the feedback that you're giving, and I'm going to feel like I'm being ganged up on. And that's not fair to me, that's not fair to you, and it's not fair to others around you. If you have an opinion, keep it to yourself and do it one-on-one. Next thing is tone. So when you're sitting down and you're having a conversation with that leader, just remember context and tone can be misread. So you want to make sure that whenever you are giving someone feedback, you practice what you're going to say, or at least go over in your head what you're going to say. I've had many crucial conversations with a lot of people. I mean, employees of mine, managers that report directly to me, sometimes my bosses and peers as well that are in the same position as me. So my coworkers, I guess you could say. So I've given a lot of people feedback, and I would say 90% of the time, I am going over what I'm going to say. Like, I have notes written down on a piece of paper of different things that I want to talk through. Just like what I said in my previous video about asking for a pay raise, I say write those things down line by line, different things that you want to say or things that you want to talk about. So with this, is the same exact thing. Write down what you want to say. This way you don't go off topic, and you also stay on the same exact subject that you want to speak about. I get sidetracked all the time, and it's easy for me to get sidetracked in any conversation, especially conversations that aren't necessarily the most comfortable conversations. So it's extremely important to write those things down. My third tip is never text or email feedback that you want to give to your manager, boss, anyone, honestly. So this video is kind of tying into multiple different things, but it's so easy. It's the easiest thing whenever you're texting, because you are able to kind of bleep yourself out, I guess you could say, and you can really edit what you want to say in those situations. However, just keep in mind that texting, you can't really understand someone's body language, you can't understand their tone. So for me, texting and emailing, I do not like to do those whenever I want to have any type of conversation that is portrayed in a negative way. So just make sure that you do not text or email. If you want to set up a conversation or set up an appointment to be able to have a conversation with your manager, I would send them an email or send them a text like, hey, I really want to spend some time with you at some point this week. Is there any way that we can schedule something? My fourth tip is never, ever give feedback while your manager is giving you feedback. To me, it seems as if it's negative intent in that situation, and it's a way of you getting back at that manager whenever they're giving you any type of feedback. You want to make sure that you are receptive to feedback and you aren't dismissive. And whenever you immediately go into giving feedback to that manager or whoever it is that's giving you feedback, it comes across as you becoming defensive and extremely dismissive in that situation, and almost like you're passing the buck and not owning that feedback. To give feedback to someone, your intent just must be good. There must be positive intent that comes along with it whenever you're giving that feedback. If you are just doing it and giving that feedback just because you feel like you want to get back at them or you want to hurt them in some way, shape, or form, you should really, really, really look at yourself in the mirror and just realize, like, you're not being a good person, first of all. Second of all, I got bigger fish to fry in that situation. And I definitely can read between the lines of someone that wants to just be blatantly disrespectful and wants to approach me in a way that isn't necessarily going to advance me or you or my place of employment. So just make sure that you have positive intent whenever you're giving any type of feedback. Next thing is, be solution oriented. So what I mean by that is have a helpful attitude whenever you are giving any type of feedback. Whenever you are approaching someone, make sure you're saying it in a way that is going to benefit them, going to benefit the store, it's going to benefit your coworkers, or it's going to benefit in some way, shape, or form. Be solutions oriented. Always try coming up to someone and telling them everything they're doing wrong or everything that is wrong isn't good. Nobody likes a negative Nancy. That's just a fact. I had employees that have only been negative, that only come up to me and have something negative to say. You got to put yourself in the manager's shoes. So think about those customers or those clients that you have that you just know you are never going to satisfy, that you are never going to satisfy. I know I've had plenty of those. So think about that from a manager's perspective. It's never fun to have employees that you feel like you can't satisfy in any way, shape, or form, and you're never going to satisfy. You want to make sure that you give the good and the bad, which I guess leads me to my next tip. Give some positive too. Don't always only give negative, and even in negative conversations, it's okay to have positive. I'll give you an example. Let's just say that you don't like the way, your manager approached you, or you don't like the way that they approach one of your coworkers. In that situation, you can say, since I said Nancy earlier, I'll say Nancy this time, tidbit here real quick. You never want to wait weeks or months to give someone feedback. The quicker you do it, the easier it is for someone to course correct and for them to just be a better manager for you. So, hey Nancy, I really wanted to talk to you about a situation that happened earlier this week. You know, there was some feedback that you gave me about the way that I had talked to a client. And I just want to start off by saying that I really appreciated the feedback. I think that I don't grow as a human being if you don't give me that feedback. However, the way that you did it made me feel like I needed to be on defense mode immediately, and I felt like I was being attacked. And I'm not sure if that was your intent whatsoever, but I wanted to let you know how I felt. And then you breathe and you let it set in for a couple of seconds and see how that manager reacts. And depending on how they react is how you respond in that situation. Hopefully, if they're a good manager, they're going to say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. That wasn't my intent. Tell me how to approach it in the future. And at that point, you have to be able to articulate how you want to be approached. So whether that's one-on-one, in a closed setting, you want to know the good and the bad about some of the things you're doing. I don't believe in a shit sandwich. Don't get it twisted. I would say just don't overwhelm. So don't give them five different things that you need to give feedback on all at one time. I think that you really need to sit and observe the way that that manager reacts to some of your feedback and understand what topics are a no-go and which topics are things that you can 100% discuss. For me, whenever someone sits down and they just tell me, you're doing this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, like I feel like I'm not doing anything right. So you need to have a good balance. I have two more things that I want to add on, and I don't know if they're tips or things that could potentially be molded into some of the tips I already spoke about. It's neither here nor there. I'm going off topic. It's fine. That's what I do. So another thing I would say is do not bite back. Stand your ground and reframe, and make sure you frame that conversation into terms that your boss cares about, I guess you could say. It's important to point out specific behaviors that are inhibiting your boss from achieving the goals that they are going after. And that's the thing that you want to remember. Sometimes in those conversations, whenever your manager does bite back, it's important just to reframe, sit back and really think about how you want to give whatever this feedback is that you want to give, and articulate yourself a little bit better. And if you aren't able to articulate yourself, just keep in mind that's important for you not to start going back and forth, because at the end of the day, what are you really going to accomplish in that situation? Just remember, there's a hierarchy, that is your manager at the end of the day. Regardless of whether or not you agree with them, you agree with everything they're saying, they're your manager. And the things that you do now and the way that you respond to that manager paints a really good picture about how you would be as a manager working under them, maybe, or moving up within the company. Just keep in mind that everyone in your career path is going to be able to help you in some way, shape, or form. It's really important not to burn bridges. Trust me, I've been that person that has burnt bridges, and I've worked my butt off to try to repair those bridges. Last and final piece of advice is that you should never, ever, ever talk about what you would do if you were the boss. It is so tempting and easy to put yourself in their shoes and to think about what you would do if you were in their situation. There's a reason why they're in the position that they're at, whether you want to believe that or not. And there is someone that believes in them, or someone that works side by side with them, or heard something great about them that got them to earn that position, whether you agree with that or not. And that's the thing that you need to keep in mind. Do not act like you are the boss, because you have no idea what that person is dealing with in their seat. If you go up to your boss and they forget to have a conversation with you after the fact, or maybe didn't speak to you about your raise, or whatever it may be. Maybe they spoke to you in a way that you didn't necessarily agree with. Number one, don't let anyone speak to you disrespectfully. But number two, just keep in mind that you have no idea what's going on in that person's life. So it's so important to assume positive intent. Positive intent is always key in these situations. But that's all of the tips that I have. Hopefully it helped you. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, if you have any ideas or any feedback for me, please put them in the comments below or send me a message directly. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Have a good one.